Go ahead.
I'd like to call the Public Works and Safety meeting to order on Monday, July 20th at 5 o'clock. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Alderman Hamel.
Here.
Alderman Kapusta. Alderman Terrence.
Here.
Scott Kreger.
Here. Statement of public notice.
The meeting was posted in accordance with open meeting laws on July 17th.
And approval of minutes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second. All those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Status of projects.
Okay, first one, Great Water Alliance. This is the Waukesha water return flow. Just to let everyone know, Common Council, next time, which is the 28th, I believe, you'll be getting a intergovernmental agreement between us and the city of Waukesha to do this project. So be prepared for that one to come. The contractor was chosen. I said that in the last meeting, and they have between 2020 and 2022 to do this work in the city of Muskego. I can't stress this enough. This is going to be a year-long project in the city of Muskego, and it's going to be a lot of headaches for pretty much every resident that we have. It's going to take a year, and it's going to be pretty much, think of the entire east side of city of Muskego. There'll be detour routes, there'll be everything, and it's a very big, long project. And I can't stress it enough. So everyone be aware of that. Next one, Hillendale. Hillendale, they're just doing the final touches. The consultant is. The plan is to put it out to bid in October, November of 2020. It'll be on the Capitol for 2021, which will all be the night of Common Council, will be August 25th. I'll be presenting there. And then the project would start in April, March of 2021 and wrap it up in the fall of 2021. So that's Hillendale. Next one, County-wide Racine Avenue, the creek tributary structure replacement. All right, outside that window, if you're looking on an angle, they've been doing some construction work out there. There's 2 culvert pipes that need to be fully replaced. September 8th, they're shutting down that road for 30 days. That is going to be very interesting for school starting, football games, everything. The detour route is always on county roads, so they'll shoot them all the way down 164. The reason why is they don't want any truck traffic to get through local roads. I'm sure local residents will find local paths to get to different places, but that will be shut down for a good 30 days, just to make everyone aware. I have a link on our project page that'll take you to Waukesha County's project page, right to that place, and they're going to update that information. That's all I have for status of projects.
Unfinished business.
Okay, turtle crossing signs. You asked me to reach out, and if you look in red, there was 3 locations that they asked for. They asked for on Durham near the pond by Bell Chase Parkway, on Durham near Hawks Trail by the pond, and on Moreland Road between Janesville and Woods near the large pond. You told me to find what they were asking for, so they're asking for 3 signs. I'm assuming if you do it one way, you might want to do both ways, so that'd be 6 signs in total. So it was something to defer. I found the information and I just passed it on to you guys.
No, as I said last time, I'm not in favor of putting signs everywhere. It's just, I look at it, we're going to put signs up for squirrels and rabbits. I don't know if the turtles really know where to cross the street, so it's just, I've never seen turtles. I go down the street quite often, either riding a bike or driving. I haven't seen a turtle there. I did see one on Parkland where I live, but that was once. You know, I don't think it's necessary to put up any more turtle signs. You know, it just.
I would agree with you on that, so.
What do you need from us to,
I need a motion to deny.
okay.
I'll make a motion that we deny the request for the signage.
I'll second that. All those in favor of denying the request, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. New business. The first one, hidden driveway sign at South 75 West 20051 Hillendale Drive. So this is the intersection of Field Drive and Hillendale Drive. And I give you an example of what a hidden drive sign would be, looking for a driveway. It's as you're traveling, I took some of these photos. This is from my car. I stopped and I took a couple photos of one from a long distance and one from a close distance. What has happened is their driveway access point is literally at the stop sign. So if I would park my car at the stop sign, the rear of my car goes right to that driveway. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar. It's our house. Yep. It is literally right at the intersection. I can't tell you enough that the driveway is right there. One of the things that we try to focus on, DPW, and that we would continue is cutting the foliage along that road. That first photo, I'm pretty far back. I can see the stop sign. I can see the mailbox. There's also another stop sign warning sign up there letting them know that the stop sign would show up. The accident data, I always like to pull that. The chief is really good last 5 years. It was a vehicle heading south on Hillendale, failed to stop at the intersection and hit a car turning left from Field Drive. So it was kind of, the car was going down south and then the car sitting there and I've included the report for you guys too, so you can kind of see the accident report, how it was drawn up. If you go down there a little bit, and it kind of shows a good idea of where the accident occurred. So it was on the other leg of the intersection. The one thing is, it kind of like the stop sign already is providing that warning sign. If you look at it, a car is already coming to almost a complete stop. It's coming to a complete stop and slowing down to that stop sign. So in fact, that stop sign and the head stop sign is acting like that warning sign for that driveway. So our recommendation is not to put a sign there, but to make sure that we cut the foliage to make sure that the stop sign and the head stop sign is, can be seen by everyone there. There's not any accidents that we've seen in the last 5 years, besides that one, of anyone not hitting the car or rear-ending the car coming out of the driveway. But that was just the recommendation of the DPW. Now, they're here, which is good, the residents, and more than welcome, they can come up to the front and talk about the issue. So you might have to turn it on.
Slide it up towards you.
Yep.
There we go. I mean, I'd be fine with vegetation because you can't see. We can't get out of our driveway. And living there, nobody stops at that stop sign. And it becomes, after about 8 o'clock at night, it becomes a dragway. And we hear the horns blowing and honking constantly of people not stopping, people coming up from Field Drive. And I understand the Field Drive thing because of the winter time, you can't get up the hill. But something needs to be done, or needs to be policed. It's probably a police issue because there's never anyone pulled over, never anyone given tickets, and we can't get out of the driveway.
And we have a very steep driveway, and in winter, we've got 2 teenage drivers and another one who's going to be starting, and we salt the driveway, but it's very steep. I don't know I know that's our problem. We didn't realize until winter, but if any of us just happen to slide out even a bit, if those cars aren't slowing down, and many of them don't, It's not just a matter of whether or not they'll hit somebody from Field Drive, but the cars don't slow down like they should be. And it's treated like there is no stop sign.
It's treated like a yield sign.
In Field Drive, those folks don't stop, and they expect everybody else to stop, but it's a really, really dangerous intersection. Even if there haven't been accidents, I certainly don't want my son to be one of the first ones to be in an accident, or his friends.
There's a lot of close calls that doesn't turn into accidents.
And so as far as, I'm concerned, the foliage, yes, should be trimmed down, but there have been times when it hasn't been. And when I did call, it was that very same day that it was scheduled for. But also, just the other day, there was a work truck parked right there in the corner. I couldn't see around it when I stopped at the sign, because you have to inch up in both cases at either the stop sign that's headed.
You have to get in the middle of the intersection.
Right. So, if that can stay completely unobscured, then that would be great.
There's a stop sign warning that a stop sign's coming up. There's a warning sign that says stop sign's coming up. Vegetation is growing over that. So that's blocked.
Yeah, we know, we have to cut that back every year and twice a year. And I know when I was out there, I kind of let the DPW guys know they got to cut a head warning sign, the foliage. It's kind of a balance with trees, just to let you know. We can cut the foliage. We probably could take trees down, and I think that would not be liked by a lot of the residents there. So we're kind of happy trying to find that happy balance of making sure you can see the signs without really taking some trees down, major ones. But the intersection, from an engineering standpoint, we don't design those like that anymore, nor should anyone do it. It is a bad intersection. So I just want to let you guys know.
Yeah,
It's not never good to have an intersection like that design. So
Yeah, I know when I come up the hill there on Field and there's Hillendale right there, you gotta inch out onto Hillendale to see the traffic.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they even allowed a driveway to be built in that particular place.
It sounds like if there was a strong commitment to help trim back the foliage, to provide better sight for you and for the signage, that potentially would address some of the concerns, as well as,
That would be significant.
and as well as potentially reaching out to the police department and saying, hey, can we maybe monitor that a little better? When I first saw this, I saw the sign and I said, hey, there's a stop sign there. If we put a hidden driveway sign and they're not obeying the stop sign, they're not going to give two rips about the hidden driveway sign. Right?
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah. I think the vegetation thing is a major problem right now.
Yep. So you would be fine with cutting back the vegetation, is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And, let the police department know if they could increase patrol in that area, because seriously, it does. We have the windows open at night, and 8, 10 o'clock, it's trucks racing down that street.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure we can communicate that with the chief. Yeah.
Did you need a motion on that?
no, what do we need? Motion to reach out to DPW.
So amend to a commitment to trim foliage and reach out to Chief Renz regarding police.
Patrols, yeah. Correct, deny the sign.
Yep.
So is that good, or do you need it specifically first to deny the sign?
It's fine.
Okay,
Just I need someone to do the.
So that was my motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, this last one. So they're here, and I'm going to first give you a talk about this one, and this is a pretty big one. So this is a request for waiver from Municipal Code 400-31B1. So you can read the municipal code below. It is in there. It's adequate drainage required. No principal building shall be erected, structurally altered, or relocated on land which is not adequately drained at all times, nor which is subject to periodic flooding, nor so that the lowest floor level is less than 2 feet above the highest anticipated seasonal groundwater. An occupancy permit and zoning permit shall not be issued for any lot where the grading plan approved for that lot at the time its planning has not been accomplished. Okay, how does this work? Any new subdivision comes up on any subdivision, every house has a groundwater elevation that they provide. We took that groundwater elevation, this is with new construction, and we look at that groundwater elevation and we make sure when we review a building permit that the basement floor is 2 feet above that. And why that is groundwater can seep in. Right now, throughout Wisconsin, we are having some of the highest groundwater in the world. If you go and look at what Lake Michigan is, it's anywhere from 1 to 2 feet higher up. That's affecting not just Lake Michigan, but all Wisconsin and a lot of interior areas. We have a low area. We're very low in Muskego. A lot of people, sometimes when we get water complaints, they at times have 2 to 3 sump pumps in their house. There's several locations in Muskego. Why this was kind of set up like this is when you have groundwater and there's heavy amounts of stormwater, your sump pumps, burn out. The water is just constant and then it just starts bubbling up from the pipes in the ground, from the walls, and it really kind of affects it. For homes now adjacent to lakes, what we do is we have ordinary high water marks. We have one for Lake Danune, one for Little Muskego, and one for Big Muskego. This one for Little Muskego is 792.27. The homeowners are proposing to put the basement sport court at an elevation of 791. This elevation is 3.27 feet below our code, just to kind of let everyone know. All right. I attached all the following dockets from they're here and they'll probably talk about it at some point. There's a waiver. They also have a geotechnical report about this. Why this has been such a big subject is in 2019, we had a person who wanted to build their house in the groundwater, and they challenged our code with the DSPS. That's the Division or Wisconsin Department of Safety and Professional Services. So they had to open up an investigation. Their lawyer sent us something. Adam and myself and Jeff had to respond back, and it was determined by them that there was no violation and close the case. Basically, it's saying that our code is fine and we can have that code. We're not the only ones. Waukesha County has one. Theirs is a 1 minimum 1 foot separation between the groundwater and basement floor. With recent storm events and when we get a call and it rains hard, the amount of drainage complaints, I'm sure you guys are aware too, come through all the time. We've had a lot of discussion internally, building inspectors, zoning, myself, that this is not a good idea. This is like, we have really struggled with this and we really don't sway because you can't win against groundwater. It is always there. And just to kind of give you an example of one of the reasons why. So back in 2008, it was called Country Bliss Estates in town of Muskego. And you should all look it up because the battle's still going on now. They don't know how to solve it. They don't know how to pump it. When it rains and the groundwater builds up, this is kind of like an issue that they don't know what to do with. And it's probably one of the reasons why they started establishing these rules of zoning codes. And I threw in one picture, and this was many residents, and this is what kind of happened. And their sport court, which is usually longer, has filled up with water. Now, this is not a recommendation by city engineering. I checked with DPW. I checked with our utilities, building inspectors. This is just not one of the things that we highly recommend. But like with anything, everyone can come to Public Works and Safety Committee and ask for a waiver. So they have their day here. So I'm sure they're both here willing to speak on this matter. So feel free.
They're supposed to state their name, right? Name and address, just for the...
Name and address, yeah.
I'm Stephanie Engle, and I'm with Wiseman Architecture, so I had prepared this submittal, which is in front of you guys, the document. So I just thought that I would quickly speak to one final part of that code, which includes a phrase that just says that any variance to this requirement can only be made through Public Works and Safety Committee. So it is built into the code that we're not trying to disregard the code by any stretch of the imagination. We understand the water drainage issue on the site, and we have assembled a team that we think has conducted a thorough report, and one of which Dave Cornally is here, and he'll speak right after me. And I just want to be clear that we're not coming just because we want something and we hope that you'll give it to us. We've conducted a report because we feel like we have addressed all of the concerns that the code was meant to address, and we've followed the intent of the code and prepared a proposal for that. And so that is why we're asking for this waiver. I just want to be clear about our intention here is the same as yours, that we want to protect the home, we want to protect the lake, we want to protect the neighborhood. So just to be clear on that, and then with that, I'll let Dave Cornally speak to the findings in the report.
Hello, I'm Dave Cornally with Giles Engineering, and I prepared a report I think that Stephanie had submitted and you have in front of you. First off, completely I agree with the city's position on groundwater table. That's the standard recommendation that we have for people, is that their basement be a minimum of 2 feet above the groundwater table. However, there are exceptions to that, depending on the soil type, what's going on with the groundwater, primarily a soil type, though, the permeability of the soil type. I think there's a sport court situation that you referred to earlier that is having some groundwater problems, kind of somewhat familiar with. Most of the time when we see people having problems with groundwater, a home was built maybe during a dry period. There may have been indications of a seasonal high water table that people didn't pay specific reference to. They built it. Later on, they found out the water table goes up and down, and in typically the springtime, other wet periods, they have actually a raise in the groundwater, so they have increased precipitation, but a groundwater rise as well, and they're pumping the groundwater, which they have a hard time, they can't keep ahead of, and their pumps are running constantly. But in this situation, so we did a couple soil borings, took a good look at it. We installed a groundwater monitoring well, piezometer actually, because it was quite a bit below the water table, down into some deeper soils that had sand and silt lenses. And we measured the water table and found that it was approximately coincident with the lake water surface, which was not surprising. But in between that and the deeper soil that did have some sand lenses, we found a very uniform lean clay that is very low, extremely low permeability material. So it's our position that a basement sunk into that clay that stays sufficiently above the underlying material that's more permeable would not have increased flow from groundwater. And within that, we'll have a robust dewatering system, also with vapor barriers and some water type to control humidity, moisture control primarily, not water control. And we think with that approach, the basement should function as a conventional basement. There's a lot of homes sunk into gray clay that technically are below the water table, below the zone of saturation. Generally, when we see these gray clays, it means that we're below the water table, but it's not a normal water table because we don't have the flow. It's kind of a aqua-clued. The water's not really flowing through it. So we do have, in southeastern Wisconsin all over, many, many homes that are in this gray material that are actually below what's technically the water table, but they don't have problems because the material is just not permeable. If you get into a sand or silt in that same, below that zone of saturation, you have some major problems. So as part of this, based on the borings, we think this approach that we outlined in the report, and Stephanie, she's actually a couple feet above what we recommended as a minimum, 4-foot separation from this potentially more permeable underlying material. So we're within a good uniform lean clay with the low permeability, but they're a couple feet higher than that. So there is a chance that the borings are not completely representative of the whole area. So we stressed in the report that it's very important to pay close attention during the excavation, see if there are sand lenses that are present, if there's any kind of water inflows. And unfortunately, we might need a mitigation change in design at that point. But with the combination of what we saw in the borings and doing the construction monitoring during excavation of the basement, if both those are consistent with this uniform clay, we feel very comfortable that the basement should function as a conventional basement.
What he means when borings, you take what? It can't be more than like a diameter or
Yeah,
that.
smaller than that 1-inch diameter
Yeah.
sample.
And you take it down and take a boring. Well, in theory, it gives you, you're supposed to have representation of the soil in the area, but you don't know until you start digging the ground. And that's why they say they'll have to mitigate or possibly mitigate when they're digging. Because you could take a boring by Alderman Hamel and the soil's different by Alderman Terrace. You don't know. You're just, but you can't spend all this money on investigation. You got to rely on a boring. But that's why in the report it says that. So just to kind of give you a
We
little
did
update.
do two and
Yeah.
felt very comfortable that was consistency among those or between both those two.
So just to kind of give you guys an idea.
Yeah.
Please, you have to come to the mic and, so.
Yeah, Bill Engle King, by the way, no relation to Stephanie, but anyways, just coincidence. Yeah, as a homeowner, obviously we tried to approach this as thoughtfully as possible. We've engaged, Giles to do the engineering on it, do test borings, and we're not looking to, take on any undue risk. We don't want a wet basement any more than anybody else does. So, I'm going to rely on the experts who've actually done the work on the specific situation. Also, I think Adam at the city suggested if there was some sort of liability waiver release, we'd be happy to sign that as well. So the city wouldn't be held accountable for any waiver that they might present at this meeting. So be willing to do that if the city wanted us to take that step as well. So, we're taking the risk. It's not really a public safety issue, but it's, and I feel comfortable with the work that Giles has done and the thoughtfulness that they're going to take. If they find something that isn't right, we're not going to, we're going to adjust as we need to. So,
One other thing too. I talked to Jeff, city attorney. Always got to talk to city attorney. So if you would, and like how the owner talked about a waiver, it would be something where it has to be a little bit more where it's tied to the property, not just to the owner. He could sell, he could move on, but it's got to be where a person who takes and does a title search and this document comes up and this title goes with the property, because that allows for the next owner to say, hey, this is something that's part of this deed or part of this lot, just to kind of let you know. That's just a
yeah,
little
and
bit
that
more
was, I think Adam mentioned
Yeah.
that as well, which we're fine. Yeah, if there's some, I think he mentioned a disclosure document or something like that. I don't know how that would legally be done. I haven't
Yeah.
looked into that, but.
And then, okay,
I
that
think
makes sense.
that's key because you don't want the next owner to come up and
Right.
deal with the problem. You're doing your due diligence and you're the one that knows what the risks are. It's not like a developer coming in, doing it below water grade, and then the new property owners come in and are stuck with the problem. You know what is going to happen.
And
So,
I'm fully comfortable signing disclosure agreement, whatever notation you want to make on the transfer. I've been there 26 years, so I'm not
Right.
going anywhere. That's why this project's being
I think-
done. So,
I think that's key if we can have it follow the title.
Yeah, like an
For
addendum
when
to the
changing
title.
ownership, I think that's key in this, because, I don't like, you're a private property owner, I don't like us telling you, as long as you're doing something, we can allow it, saying that you can't do it.
and I'm not doing this on a wing and a prayer. I got the expert here,
Right, yeah.
and so, trying to do it right, that's all.
Yep,
I had that same thought. If this was a developer asking to take 40 homes at that same, I'd be like, no, because now you've got a homeowner coming in, they have no clue what we did or didn't approve. And, but again, it's your home. And if you're comfortable with the risk, I mean, my first thought is, you have more at stake than I do at this point. If you want to put a basketball court in your basement and it floods, you've worked with experts, and so be it. That's sort of my thought on some of it. I know that I asked a little bit about the discharge of water, and the question is next to the lake. Is it easier to discharge? We chatted a little bit about how the sump then would go into the lake, which is normal. And I had one concern because we talked about water. If your home wasn't on the lake, we've had issues with sump pump issues where a neighbor complains about a neighbor and there's his sumps in my yard. And if you were sinking yourself into groundwater and dumping all this water into your neighbor's yard, I would have had issues with that as well. But I think with where your property's located, I think that for me isn't a concern at this point.
Goes right down.
Yeah, it's like the lake, so there's
And
water
Come
there.
up and go down into the,
And just to let you know, this is with any plan, any person that turns in a building plan, we all review this. I mean, we make sure drainage is done properly so that no neighbors, because neighbors call aldermans and then aldermans call me, and then we have to go out and solve these problems. So we try to really get these problems solved before they do it. So, and that's something when you turn in a full building permit, we look at all that stuff. We do a thorough job to try to get rid of some of those headaches at a time. And just to let everyone know too, if they designed this and built this at the proper thing, 2 feet above, we're not even having this discussion. So it's not like we wouldn't allow this. It's just why this is being brought forward is because of the waiver.
Yeah.
We wouldn't even have this discussion if if they weren't asked for a waiver, this would be moving through the process. We wouldn't be denying this for any reason or anything like that, just to let you know. So it's just because of this matter, why it's here.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. Sure.
Come to the mic and state your name and address, please, for the record.
Sorry.
Kevin Kupaki, W203S11072, Point to Noon Road. My question is, what happens if during excavation, the subsoil conditions vary? Are all bets off, or do we just keep going?
Yeah, go ahead.
Come on up.
What we would do in that case is situate it at a higher elevation. That would be our recommendation to our client to situate in this case, it's elevation 795. If we run into fissures and seams of sand that we didn't anticipate, but again, based on the borings and my experience in the area, I think that's a very low probability. I wouldn't want to recommend that to my client to go ahead with this thing and then have it fall apart at that if I thought that was a significant risk. I think it's a very small risk, but still important. Having a problem like that and rectifying it by changing plans and having something that's not ideal is much greater than having a basement that's a problem for the life of the home. So that's what we'd recommend doing.
I would assume that would be something that you would have alternate plans when you go through planning commission to say, here's the design. If we hit, here's plan B. You know, it's not a basketball court, it's just a normal basement kind of thing. Is that how that would work?
I believe so, but that would maybe something Stephanie could speak more
Here's how,
directly to.
just to give you how it works is this. Okay. You fill a building permit, I get the building permit. It goes between me, planning, and our building inspectors. I look at what your footings are and what you prepared for your footings. I put on a sheet, an official sheet, what your footings are, okay? You can't change from them. Your builder can't change from them. They're like gold. The inspectors look and say, hey, this is what it is. This is what it's gonna be. During this process, sometimes, we just had one, an excavator didn't excavate enough, 3 inches too high. So he said, hey, can I raise the house 3 inches from footings? In my standpoint, we looked at it, we talked about it during this process. We said, that sounds good. You're not really a foot, you're not gonna affect the neighbor next to it. You're more out of the groundwater, so that's okay. What are all the effects? And we get to it, and then we say, yep, you can approve it. But if you try to raise a building an inch below or above what this sheet says, it starts the whole review process again. Mm-hmm. So if he goes out there and he says, I can't do this, I got to raise it up, it triggers red flags for myself, the inspector, and planners, and we start reviewing the whole process again.
Yeah.
And then I got to get them this new gold sheet so that they all can sign off on it. So that's usually what the process is. Mm-hmm. We go forward with what was proposed, and then if there's changes in the field, and that's usually the case, and the big case is the footings, because the excavator there, the concrete's there, and that's where the pretty much the golden step is. So any waiver from that, we start the process again. So just to let That's how our process works. So
Yeah.
he doesn't need to, he can plan on his side between them what a contingency plan is. We won't know about it until, hey, we ran into an issue. Now we're going to figure out what it is. And then if it's raised up too much, what I would say is submit a whole new plan set. Because now if you're talking 3 or 4 feet, what might happen, it might trigger more of not just me, how planning looks at it, how inspectors look at it, which probably would be a delay, just to let you know, but it's understandable because you're changing it that much.
Yeah. No, I'm aware that thanks for explaining
Yep.
it, but it's a big process that we wouldn't, hence send someone down the road if we thought it was a 75% chance it would work. It needs to be like a 99% chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how the process works, just for everyone in the room.
Thank you.
Want to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
New business placed on file. Can I make a request to have, at least quarterly, to have fire and PD at least come in for fire, give response times, anything that's going good or bad, anything they need help with, any issues or concerns, and same with PD, just to give us an update.
That's fine, I can do it. Usually chief asks me, is there anything why I have to be here? And if it's, as you can tell, very minimal stuff.
Yeah, just a quarterly
Yep.
update. If everything's going fine, that's, fine, but, it just,
Do you want them here or do you want it in writing? I mean,
I guess it depends. If there's something of significance, they can be here, just something in writing, otherwise I think would be.
just like a report. That way he doesn't need to come out if it's not.
Any other communications and miscellaneous business as authorized by law? Motion to adjourn?
Second? Or I make the motion? I make a motion
It
to
doesn't
adjourn.
matter. Second.
There's two of
All those
us.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.